Now for this next story, man, Joe Rogan, you're a beast. Joe Rogan, you're a fucking beast, and you asked the right question. Thank you. This is why you're the biggest fucking podcaster in the world, because this is a question that I would have asked the real Rick Ross, Freeway Rick Ross. So, Freeway Rick Ross, the real Rick Ross, ended up going on Joe Rogan's podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. And Joe Rogan, being the GOAT that he is, asked him, hey, why hasn't anybody confronted William Roberts, a.k.a. the fake Rick Ross, about stealing your identity? And why are rappers working with this guy? Now, you can see how much I was cheesing when I was watching this because, hey, it's the facts. Why the fuck are people... Why, when William Roberts got exposed for being a cop, a literal cop, correctional officer, did rappers still fuck with him? Because you got 6ix9ine snitching and everybody just all of a sudden stops fuck with him. But you got William Roberts every day cuffing him and everybody cool with it. So I'm going to see if I can play this clip for you guys because it might get copyrighted. So if it's not in the podcast, you know why. If it is, you know, it's all good. But I'm going to play the clip for you guys. Basically, Joe Rogan asks him, hey, why hasn't anybody confronted Rick Ross about this, the rapper one? It's wild that he stole your identity and stuff. So I'm going to play it. Let's play it.
Have you ever seen anybody confront Rick Ross about you?
Not in person, no. Anytime I'm around, he disappears.
But is there any video of anybody hey, why are you running around with this dude's name when this dude's out of jail now?
Well, you know, these guys, they kind of like we talked about, when you got some money, they don't care if you beating women or making them lick tampons. You know, everybody fuck with you.
Right.
So, you know, he was on top of the world at one time.
He was a corrections officer.
Yeah, but he was. But when he got some money, they forgot about he was a correctional officer. You got gangsters, you know, doing records with him, and you know, people who say, "Oh, I hate snitches" and all this, but they doing records with a police officer who put handcuffs. You know, I got letters from guys that was in jail with him when he was a correctional officer, and they told me what a shitty guy he was. You know, that they would be shooting dice, he would take the dice and all the money, and they got extra soup. He'd take the soups and
wow,
and you know, just stuff that normal officers just don't. You know, officers. I mean, everybody in jail got extra soups. You know, you save your soups because it might come a time and you ain't got them, so you stack your stuff up. But most officers don't even care. You know, who cares about the extra soup? We trying to get the dope dealers and you know the guys with the knives, but then you got those ones and they're like, oh, well, you got an extra pair of underwear. You going to the hole.
Yeah, and that's how he was?
That's how he was. They say that's the kind of cop he was. And then when I hear that he's the biggest gangster rapper on the planet, it's like...
It's just so crazy. What is it like having a dude running around out there with your name? Like, if there was a rapper out there named Joe Rogan, I'd be like, what the fuck?
It's crazy. You know, like, how would you... take my name and not have the decency to ask me first of all. You should have asked, but then never pay homage. You know, he won't even admit that he stole the name. He tells people that he invented the name. Like, how the fuck do you invent this name?
Well, it's so crazy because the name was famous. Your name was famous. Everybody knew who you were. When the case came out and when the connection to the Iran-Contra affair came out, when everybody found out what was going on, like, you were a legend.
Yeah, you throw a few $1 million, you know, toward Instagram and Facebook and you know, the radio station, and everybody forget about that, you know? And you put a little gold chain on and you drive
nuts.
A Rolls Royce and a couple of pretty girls.
It's one thing if his name was Rick Ross. It's possible there could be another Rick Ross out there. I've met other Joe Rogans. That's real.
Yeah, me too. I met other Rick Rosses.
But what the fuck, man? The guy knows who you are. Everybody knows who you are. Takes your name.
So I don't know how much of the clip I was able to play, probably because of copyright, because Joe Rogan is a huge platform. And, you know, when you play clips, you get copyrighted. So who knows? I'm just going to break down basically most of what they said. And basically, hey, And it's funny because the way Joe Rogan responds, he's like, what the fuck? Like, how can someone take someone's whole identity, persona, lifestyle, and become a multimillionaire off it? This is the same response I have. I'm shocked. And all the real Rick Ross says, Freeway Rick Ross, all he said was, hey, you didn't have to give me props. You didn't even have to, nothing. You didn't even have to talk to me. You could have at least told the public, hey, I got this name from the drug dealer Rick Ross in Cali. That's it. You didn't have to say, hey, I fuck with him. Hey, I respect him. None of that. Just say, hey, this is why I got a problem with William Roberts, because when he got exposed for being a correctional officer, he denied it for years. Years denied it. And then finally was like, yeah, that was me. And then said, nah, I didn't stay there long. I only stayed there for about a week, and I got fired because I wasn't a good correctional officer. Then paperwork comes out denying that, saying that, hey, this guy was a perfect correctional officer, was there for 2 years and got a perfect attendance award. So what does that tell you, man? This guy just lies throughout everything and builds this fake persona that he is. And it's unfortunate because the real Rick Ross had to suffer. You know what he said? He said, listen, when he went to court to sue Rick Ross for using his name and building his lifestyle from his name. Ultimately, the real Rick Ross lost because the statute of limitations on stealing someone's personality identity expires in 2 years. Unfortunately, the real Rick Ross was locked up, so he couldn't do it within that 2-year window. Ultimately lost. But here's the interesting thing, too. When the lawsuit started in 2010, what was Rick Ross calling himself around that time? He started calling himself Rose. He started changing the marketing strategy up. Instead of calling him Rick Ross, because he knew if he would have lost this lawsuit, he couldn't use the name Rick Ross. He'd have to switch it to Rose. Ricky Rose, probably. That would probably have been the new rapper name, Ricky Rose. But they ended up spending $1.5 million to win it. Instead, Freeway Rick Ross was like, listen, my mom was facing eviction. I needed just $220,000. That's it. He was like, if Rick Ross would have just paid me $220,000, he could have took the name, done whatever the fuck he would know with that. I would have showed respect. And here's the thing. That would have gave Rick Ross so much more respect in hip-hop if the real Rick Ross came out and said, I fuck with him. Yeah, he a real one. I fuck with him. That correctional officer shit, yeah, he was a correctional officer because he was moving drugs for people. I know that. He could have said that. Everybody would have ran with it and been like, yo, I would have wiped out all his correctional officer shit. It would have solidified his name in the streets. It would have done everything perfect. And all that would have costed him was $220,000. Instead, he is a person that doesn't move with integrity. Because if that was me, because Rick Ross was betted. Here's why Rick Ross took the name from the real Rick Ross, right? He bet on the real Rick Ross being locked up for the rest of his life because he got a life sentence. But the real Rick Ross ended up, learning that they caught him. I hope I'm wording this correctly. They caught him, like when you get arrested, when you get 3 strikes, you're out. That's like kind of the law in these drug cases. They used all those three strikes on one case, which can't be done. And he found that out, and that's how he got out of prison eventually. Because had he not found that out, he'd have been locked up for the rest of his life. So that's what William Roberts, the fake Rick Ross, was betting on. That, hey, this guy got locked up for the rest of his life. I'm good. I can take his name. Nothing's going to happen to me. But then he gets out, and he's like, oh, shit. The real one's out. Oh, shit. Do I show him love and admit that I took his name, or do I pretend like I never did and I got the name myself? He took the route of pretending I never did and I got the name myself. Which is stupid, man. I would have been like, yo, check this out. Your mom's getting evicted. I'll give you, shit, I would have been like, I'll give you $300,000. But, you pay your mom's house off and you get $80,000 in your pocket. Right? Just to say the lowest amount. I actually would have given him probably $500,000. Just because I've been like, listen, man, listen, if you can do this for me, and I would have been like, co-sign me. Put it out there that, hey, just because I'm a correctional officer, I was a dirty cop. Put it out there that I was, because they would have took the real Rick Ross's word on that 100%. I would have took it. I would have never known behind the scenes stuff. Nobody probably would have ever knew. And he could have co-signed Rick Ross, and that would have made 50 Cent look horrible, because that would have been like, yo, the real Rick Ross came out and solidified everything, stamped everything. Instead, he took the route of being a sucker. You know? And it's unfortunate nobody's ever asked him about stealing someone's whole identity. He came up with this whole story. But here's the beautiful thing. I'm going to be working on a documentary, and I'm going to be going over all this. Rick Ross versus Rick Ross. It's going to go over the story of the real Rick Ross and the story of the rapper Rick Ross. And it's going to see how their lives intertwined. And you're going to see that this guy literally just stole this guy's whole identity. I'm going to go over all of the real Rick Ross's story, what he's done and gone through, versus what the rapper raps about. And you're going to see it's all identical. Yeah, it's going to be a great documentary. That's going to be the next one I'm working on. I'm working right now on the Diddy $1 million hit. Then I'm going to do Drake versus Kendrick Lamar. Then I'm going to do this Rick Ross one. I think that's probably going to be the biggest one. And I'm gonna see if I can actually reach out to the real Rick Ross, Freeway Rick Ross, and see if he can give me, because in this interview he says the rapper Rick Ross, the fake one, was a garbage correctional officer that would steal soups from people that wouldn't let him play dice games, and he says he's got letters from people when they were locked up dealing with that. So if he can give me those letters for that documentary and I put it on there, even better. I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to use my resources to get him to do that, to send it to me. I'll try paying him whatever I can afford to pay him to get those documents, and I will release that documentary. I think it will be one of my greatest pieces of works ever. And I will love doing it. Just because, hey, man, I don't like people who do, like, he's been done, the real Rick Ross has been done dirty by a lot of people, by the way. Not just Rick Ross, the rapper, but what's his name? I think it's John Singleton. He made the series Snowfall. It's based on the real Rick Ross's life, and he never paid him a dime for it. There's a documentary made about the real Rick Ross's life. He got chipped out of that, screwed out of that. So he's been done dirty by a lot of people, man. And I would love to make this documentary, not only to get him paid whatever I can afford to pay, which is not a lot, but just to give him more respect in what he's done. But yeah, I would love to get the rapper Rick Ross in the documentary, just to tell his side of the story. I would love to get both sides of the story wholeheartedly. Just see, maybe, there's slim chances because he's been proven he's lied a lot, but maybe he is telling the truth. Maybe he has some proof of a kid that called him Rick Ross when he was a kid, and that's why he ran with the name. I don't know. We don't know. But all I know is this was interesting. Shout out to Joe Rogan. Great questions. And the way Joe Rogan reacted was just even more hilarious, because that's my reaction. It's like, holy fuck. How is there a guy who's a rapper who pretends to be as big as drug dealer, steal someone's whole identity, and become big off of that? Why weren't rappers literally 6ix9ine snitched and everybody attacked him, blackballed him? But Rick Ross comes out, he's a correctional officer, he's this and that, and everybody's cool with it. It's like, come on. The difference in that was just astronomical. But that's just, all that is money. That's, he even explained here, it's about putting fake chains on and pretending and having the backing of labels, having the backing of Jay-Z, who signed Rick Ross at Def Jam at the time, having the backing of Diddy, who was co-signing him, saying he's the next Biggie. All that backing is what made Rick Ross become this big hot rapper at the time, which we went all over the streams. He wasn't that hot of a rapper. Yeah, he had records that were buzzing, but like himself, he wasn't that big of a rapper compared to other ones. But yeah, interesting interview, interesting clip, and yeah, I just wanted to talk about it because it was insane to hear it on the Joe Rogan podcast.